Welcome to OffDutyEngineer. I am Alan. This channel is for some of my scale modeling projects, plastic aircraft, wooden ships, and dioramas to display them. Hi everyone, this is a summary of the scale model build of the two aircraft, the Mirage III C and the Cheetah D Fighter Aircraft, both finished off as operational in the South African Air Force. The kits are both Kinetic Model Kits in 1/48 scale. The two aircraft are presented here, each on their own. The next video, part 2, they are combined into a diorama with them landing side by side with their drag chutes open. First, the photos of the final result. Both fighter aircraft are in the South African Air Force SAAF insignia. The Mirage III C is in the older SAAF colours and insignia circa 1960 to 1980. The newer Cheetah is in the newer but still interim insignia circa 1980 to 1997. The very newest insignia came in effect in 1997 to current. The Cheetah is in the operational colours of the South African Air Force base of Louis Trichardt in the north of South Africa. This is one of 3 bases where they were stationed. They were also deployed in Namibia, previously Southwest Africa, on the border war with Angola in the 70s and 80s. This Cheetah is shown with the 2 long-range field drop tanks and 2 Python air-to-air missiles. The Mirage is in the original operational colours of the SAAF. Many colour schemes were deployed. This is the desert scheme mostly used in the 70s. The Mirage III C was also deployed in Namibia and the border war in the 70s and 80s. This Mirage is shown with the 2 supersonic field drop tanks and 2 Sidewinder air-to-air missiles. Here is some brief but interesting history of the Mirage and Cheetah aircraft in South Africa. I was based in the South African Air Force Base Pietersburg in 1976. We had the Mirage 3 range in service then, and later the Mirage F1 for a short while. The need for a new advanced fighter was identified then. The main Cheetah development and testing was done at Atlas in Pretoria and at Air Force Base Louis Trichardt. The Cheetahs were also based in Air Force Base Pietersburg and Overberg near Cape Town, where I lived, and later saw them at air shows. The South African Air Force developed the Atlas Cheetah program during the 1980s, necessitated and expedited due to the international sanctions and arms embargo, denying French Dassault from supporting the existing Mirage fighters in service. The Mirage 3 frames were used as a basis, completely rebuilt and modernized with new engine and avionics. The Cheetah could carry 3 times as much ordnance as the Mirage 3 with superior agility as well. It was an excellent example, one of many, of the resilience and innovation of the South African nation then. The South African Air Force insignia has changed over the time, especially after the change of government in 1997, when the new flag was introduced. Here are some of the SAAF roundels against the 2 flags. Next is the details of the Kinetic kits. The Cheetah D kit is from Kinetic Models, 1/48 scale, number K48081. The D is for dual seat for training. Decals for the South African Air Force, the new insignia, as well as Ecuador colours are included. Scale mates indicates the original tooling was in 2014, the new parts for 2022 in this kit. Here are some details on the Kinetic box. The text is almost directly from Wikipedia. 3 colour schemes for South Africa for the 3 Air Force bases that they were based. I was based at Air Force Base Pietersburg in 76. The main air testing was done at Air Force Base Louis Trichardt. They were also later based at Air Force Base Overberg near Cape Town, where I lived and saw them at air shows. Note that the decals are cartograph. The instruction book is simple, in black and white only, including the cover and the schemes, some 15 pages. Because the Cheetah is based on the Mirage, Kinetics has two kits, the K48081 and the K48054. There is a lot of duplication of parts and sprues. The additional sprues for the Cheetah D are added, but there is a duplication in numbering. There are two different D sprues, so I need to be careful later. The color chart is based on Ammo MiG with cross-reference to Kinetic Model Color, Mr. Color, Tamiya and Humbrol. Not all the colors are matched. I used Kinetic Air, airbrush and handbrush, and Tamiya for hand brushing. So I had to do a detailed color matching and created a spreadsheet for this. The instruction book is simple, but detail is often not clear. Example, the details of the cockpit instrumentation panels is missing, but in the Mirage booklet it is clear and detailed, so I used that as well as some web images. There are three color schemes for the three Air Force bases that they were based. The schemes are very similar, all with the low contrast grey shades. I chose AFB Louis Trichardt colors because this was the primary deployment base for the Cheetahs. The decal sheet is detailed and covers the variants. Note that the decals are cartograph and are excellent quality. Mirage III kit is from Kinetic Models, 1:48 scale, number K48054. The kit covers many variants of the 3. I wanted the 3D2Z. The 3C was deployed in many countries over many years. Decals are included for many countries, including Australia, RAAF, and South Africa, SAAF. Scale mates indicate the original tooling was in 2014, then new parts in 2017 in this kit. I wanted to build the 3C to the 1970s insignia of the old South Africa, and with the sand desert camo. I found this image on the net that was a good representation to follow. Again, the instruction book is simple, mostly in black and white, total 17 pages. There are a lot fewer sprues than in the Cheetah kit, indicating that the Cheetah kit has the same but with a few added sprues for the differences. The color chart is long because it indicates all the colors of all the variants. I had to identify which colors were applicable to the SAAF variant. The camo colors listed for the SAAF camo scheme seemed a bit off, so I ended up substituting colors, especially the yellow. The instruction book is more detailed than the Cheetah kit, especially for the cockpit. I could use the Mirage book for the Cheetah cockpit build and paint. There are no figures in the kits, so I sourced third-party pilots to enhance the kits. The Mirage decal sheet is comprehensive and detailed, covering all the variants. Note that the decals are cartograph again and are really excellent quality. The SAAF insignia is in the old flag and style of the 60s and late 70s era. Perfect. Next is the build of the two kits. The first step was to clear my workspace. I procured 4 sets of shelving from IKEA, assembled and fitted these to create more display for completed models and storage for stuff and stash. I then inspected both kits, sprues, and assessed the quality. Because there are many duplicate sprues in the two kits, I labeled the kit boxes and sprues with C2 for Cheetah 2 and M for the Mirage. The quality of the plastic and extrusions are good. Only some small parts needed some flash to be sorted out. Note that I had built Cheetah Kit 1 previously in the new South African flare colours and displayed in flight passing Table Mountain in Cape Town. You can see my YouTube channel for all the video builds at OffDutyEngineer 57. To supplement the Cheetah and Mirage models, I procured 4 aftermarket 3D resin kits at 1:48 scale. 1. A pilot figure and ejector seat, res kit from Ukraine. 2. 2 pilot figures seated with decals for uniform, DEF models in Korea. 3. 3 pilot figures, Tory factory in Korea. 4. Exhaust nozzle, res kit. This was to add more detail and interest to the model. In the previous Cheetah build, I had completed all 3 cockpits. Now I only needed to fit the second pilot figure and test the fit. A cheat is that I only used the upper part of the rear pilot to make sure that it was low enough to clear the canopy. Hand painting of the pilots, then test fitting the complete cockpits into the fuselages with check the canopy clearance. Then take a moment to complete the exhausts. The resin parts cut cleanly and fitted well. For colouring, I referred to a web image. Hand painting using white base, then layered towards the tail discharge with clear yellow, clear orange, a dash of clear red, and metallic on the outside. The results looked okay. The exhaust could be kept apart and popped into the rear of the fuselage right at the end with no glue required. Next was to hit the hard yakka, that is Aussie dialect for hard work. Assemble the body parts, fuselage with cockpit, and wings upper and lower sections. At this stage, the fuselage and lower wing sections are identical between the Cheetah and the Mirage, both twin-seater trainer aircraft. This makes sense because the Cheetah was based on the Mirage III C body, completely rebuilt to 0 flying hours. The Cheetah got a new engine, nose, wings, undercarriage, comprehensive cockpit upgrade, new instrumentation, in-air refueler, and new armaments. A sidetrack here. My final aim was to display these two aircraft in a diorama landing alongside each other with drag chutes open, so I had to prepare a 4mm clear perspex rod to enter the underside of each fuselage and hold the airplanes in the landing position with the front wheel just off the ground. I constructed a passage for the clear rod out of old sprues at the correct angle. Then I could continue with the body assembly. The cockpit and fuselage halves are glued and clamped. The jet intakes are assembled, fitted and glued in place. This was tricky to get the placement correct. The wings are fitted and glued together with many clamps. The wing sections are glued to the fuselage and clamped hard to close the gaps. The fit of the body was exceptionally good. There was no fill required at the wing roots. This was probably because of how I clamped the assembly when gluing. The leading edges of the wings were also excellent with no work required. The only slight filling required was the underside of the tail to fit that panel better and a little on the nose. The undercarriage was prepped and dry fitted. The wheels assembled and sanded. I left the tyre surface sanded rough for better presentation. Next, to prepare the body finishes. The flaps. I had to have them in the down position for landing, and suitable option of armament rails was included. The drop tanks. I used the narrow supersonic tanks for the Mirage and the long-range tanks for the Cheetah, the two sidewinders for the Mirage, and the newer Python air-to-air missiles for the Cheetah. The undercarriage doors. Some needed to be open, some closed. Noted the closed doors on both kits, the fit was poor and a lot of very careful cutting and sanding was needed to gradually get them to fit. The Cheetah had the canard wings fitted and the air refueler pipe. I had to be careful of these during handling after this step. Next was to mask the canopies. I used Tamiya masking tape 3mm along the edges, carefully trimmed with a new blade, then 6mm tape to cover the larger areas. Rub all down well with a toothpick to seal the edges. Note that for this kit, for the first time, I applied Rain X to the canopy parts, inside and out. This is a car windscreen sealer. It makes the canopy clear and bright. I was a bit worried that the Rain X finish would inhibit the paint from adhering, but it seemed okay later. The cockpit and wheel wells were also masked. Time to prime both bodies and all remaining parts. Vallejo Air Primer, grey, used out of the bottle. The airbrush I used is Iwata HPCS with a 0.3mm needle. Pre-clean the airbrush before using. Compressor at about 18 psi. 2 light coats, nice and even, a few minutes apart. Vallejo Air aluminium was airbrushed to the Mirage supersonic tanks as well as the undercarriage struts and wheels. The 4 missiles were sprayed white. Hand paint the last parts. Black tires, silver for the armament rails, yellow tips for the 2 sidewinders, black tips for the 2 Pythons, black exhausts for all 4 missiles. For the Cheetah, the underside and top was Vallejo Air 71.276 USAF light grey. This is also the colour of the Mirage underside. The Mirage was masked and painted. The Cheetah could be painted top and bottom, no masking. Camo would be next. The Cheetah camo would be simple. A wavy mask on the top side and a slightly darker grey. The darker grey was Vallejo Air 70.046 pale blue grey, an old favourite for aeroplanes. Unmasking is always exciting, per the video. The final result was excellent. The Mirage camo colors were interesting. The 2 camo colors on the Mirage were indicated in the Kinetic book with Ammo MiG references. The yellow seemed suspect, even on Model Shade website. Kinetic kit called for AMIG 030 sand yellow, which was far too bright. I tried to mix a color from Vallejo Air medium yellow, about 30% Middlestone added. This ended up an ugly mustard color after airbrushing. With this mustard as a base, I used 71031 Middlestone unmixed, and this color looked much better, closer to exact. Note that the Middlestone on its own would have been far too dark. It's good to get lucky sometimes. I procured a third-party masking set from Top Notch to try on the Mirage III C. It really saved time, improved accuracy, and was really good to use. The film was very thin and flexible to follow the body curves in 3D. After careful rubbing with a toothpick, there was no bleed under the masking. The top color was Mirage Air 7134 USA Maduri Green, which was a great match. Unmasking is always exciting, per the video clips. The canopy masks were peeled off to check the results. Things start coming together fast on this last run. Fit the undercarriages, Mirage Air gloss coat varnish, decals for both airplanes. These fighters are always highly polished for flying fuel efficiency and range, and for performance. So I did not weather the panel lines, etc. I wanted the clean look. The canopies of both airplanes needed one of the struts to be white, so this was masked and hand painted. Here are the decals completed. Mask the canopies again to avoid final coat of varnish touching the glass. I used Mirage Air matte coat varnish to lock in the slight weathering done, the decals and the colors, and apply the varnish to the tanks and missiles. Remove the canopy masking again. Final fit the tanks and missiles. Almost complete. Here is a summary and some more photos of the completed SAAF Cheetah and Mirage III C. This was a very satisfying build. The build took about 6 to 8 weeks, the time spread out over a few months of Christmas break, etc. The Kinetic kits are quite new, with parts 2020-ish, and all parts fitted well. I found that Kinetic kits are good quality, and I would recommend them. Here is a spoiler for the part 2 video. The next part 2 of this build is to display the Cheetah and the Mirage in a diorama of them landing alongside each other with their drag chutes open. This is a teaser photo. Part 2 video will be released immediately after this part 1. You can see all my scale model builds on YouTube at OffDutyEngineer 57. Thank you and see you next time. That is all. I hope that you enjoyed this. Please follow, like, subscribe, etc. See you next time. Thank you.